Assalamu alaikum, you're watching Views and News and I'm Faisal Rehman live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about the plight of Muslims in India, or perhaps let me put it this way, the plight of non-Hindus in India. India is becoming the most hostile place in the world for the minorities. Whether you talk about the Dalits, Christians, Muslims, Sikhs, Jains or anybody from any other caste. Now, especially when we talk about the Muslims in India, primarily they are the target of the Modi regime, which is a fascist regime, and we all know this Hindutva concept is getting strength by each passing day. This agenda on which the Modi government is working is primarily for the Hindu supremacy and perhaps Muslims as a second or I would say even a third grade citizens. Muslims' houses have been bulldozed, and I'm not talking about only Jammu and Kashmir. I'm also referring it to people living in Delhi for that matter. Last year, if you remember, the riots were so strong in those areas. Every person was out, especially when we talk about the farmers, and whatever happened, we all witnessed. Again, after this bill which was passed against the Muslims in particular, there were people on the roads in hundreds and thousands, and at the end of the day their houses were torched, their businesses were burnt, they were forced to shut down their businesses as well. So this is a ritual now. Where is it leading India? Yes, one thing is for sure, that India, it's not me who's saying it, Maneka Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi, the opposition leaders, they have been very clearly saying that India is no more a secular state. It has become a Hindu fascist regime, and this concept of RSS is now prevailing everywhere. Now, before I introduce you to our panelists, our production team has prepared a report. Let's watch that first.
Indian minorities, whether belonging to the lower castes of Hinduism or those belonging to other religions, are still looking and yearning for the real independence to live their lives with the true spirit of India's claimed secularism. Unfortunately, even after 7 decades of independence, India has failed to actually prove that it is the world's largest democracy. On the other hand, since BJP's Narendra Modi has taken the office of the Prime Minister of India, his Hindutva-oriented extremist policies has further let the poison of intercommunal hatred to seep in the politico-social foundations and mesh of India, which has made the lives of Muslims and other castes a real nightmare. The death of a 9-year-old boy, Indra Meghwal, who belonged to India's marginalized Dalit community from Rajasthan's Jalore district in an Ahmedabad hospital after fighting for his life for several days, after allegedly being assaulted by his school teacher because he drank water from an earthen pot meant for the upper caste, is an actual proof that the India is no more safe for even Hinduism and Hindus. Dalits have historically faced various forms of social and political discrimination in India. According to Indian media reports, the accused teacher has been arrested and booked under Section 302 of Indian Penal Code and relevant provisions of the Scheduled Castes and Scheduled Tribes Act. The investigation into the incident has been taken up under the case officer scheme, in which a single police officer follows a prosecution of the accused till the conclusion of the trial.
Now, to talk about this, we have with us in our studio, on my right is Dr. Tughral Yamin. He's a senior analyst. Doctor, pleasure to have you in the program. And we have with us Dr. Majid Khan Saab. He's the editor, London Post, senior journalist. Thank you very much, Majid Saab, for your presence. And on Skype, we have with us Dr. Asma Shakir Khawaja Saiba, executive director of CISS, AJ&K. Thank you very much, ma'am. Pleasure to have you in the program. Now, let me start out, sir. I mean, this is not the first time that we are actually discussing this issue and about the regime. But sir, since 2014, it's been almost 8 years now. Narendra Modi is gaining strength with each passing day, as we have witnessed in most of these elections also. Where is it leading India now, sir, and where he has already led India? Let's start off from there.
Faisal Saab, the unfortunate thing is that India is progressing. Despite its fascist policies, despite its anti-minority policies, nothing is happening to India. Nobody is actually castigating India as a...
Domestically and internationally?
Both sides.
Yeah.
Nothing is happening. They are killing Muslims. doesn't make any waves in India. Modi will still win the elections. We will keep shouting hoarse about his anti-Muslim policies or anti-scheduled caste policy or anti-Christian policy or anti-Buddhist policy. Nothing is happening. The world is not saying anything. World is not bothered. For them, India is a huge economy. And domestically also, India, the farmers who protest against India in India, they give a rousing welcome to Modi once he goes abroad. The same Punjabi farmers who have been blockading roads and been protesting against the anti-farm policies. So the unfortunate part is nothing is happening to Modi. And believe me, Faisal Saab, I've spent 65 years in this world now, and I've never seen any Indian government which has been pro-Muslim. All governments, they have been anti-Muslims. I have, as a child, I know there used to be riots in Gujarat, anti-Muslim riots, and Modi is not the only butcher of Gujarat. There have been before him who have been following similar policies. The only difference is that Modi has touched a new line. He is truly, he has the pogroms that he has unleashed in Gujarat were ones which led to him being not given a visa for the United States.
I remember, yes, when he was the chief minister.
Yeah, but now he is welcome there.
Howdy Modi.
Howdy Modi was Trump's slogan. Trump had also invited our previous prime minister, but he had also invited Modi. He has been welcoming anybody who he thought would be useful to him.
Obviously, sir, the reality is that today I was going through a very interesting report, and I was surprised to know that when it comes to the IT exports,
149.
India is twice the size of China even.
Yes.
Just imagine.
More than twice.
More than twice,
East of
actually.
64 is on, they are on
Yes,
149
exactly. There you go. And when you talk about the Indian economy, sir, according to one of the survey, obviously India has become #1 country as far as population is concerned. Recently, they surpassed the Chinese, and they believe that by the year 2048, I mean, this is just a calculation, a mathematical calculation, that India is going to be the #1 economy in the world. Looking at the size of the businesses, looking at the size of the middle class. Your take, Majid, on the same point.
I see. I see it from the eyes of the media. You know, in Palestine and Kashmir and the Indian Muslims have most probably the same case. You know, before 70s, Palestinian got a good attention in the international media. From 70s to 2000, more than 30 movies were made. It showed that Palestine was terrorist, and they are the subgroup people, they are the subhumans, they are kind of things. So result was that after when we analyze it foreign media, we see that Palestinian got no attention from the international media. Same thing happened in India. Same thing practice done by India especially after mid-90s. You see, from mid-90s till now, all Indian movies and Indian entertainment media and news media, all of them, they will show the Muslims are evils. So
all the gangsters in their movies are Muslims.
Are Muslims. So the thing is, it comes in the public mind. The public mind, the key is that they are the demonized. So what's the policy of the Indian media is demonize people, demonize Muslim, demonize Pakistan, and isolate Muslim and isolate Pakistan. That was their policies from very early ages, but now from still mid-90s, we have seen that a lot of researches has been done from our scholars, that from mid-90s we have seen a lot of changes of media policy on India. This specific policy demonized, turn Muslims evil in the eyes of the people, eyes of the world, and the eyes of especially in the Indian people. You know, whenever we meet Indians in overseas, they, in a first expression, they are very conservative and very reserved about us. But after a few days, we understand, no, he's not, because the media keep telling them that they are terrorists, they are unfriendly, they are black people, they are monster people, they are the people they killed Indians. Same kind of practice done by.
And then again, immediately Pakistan is associated with that.
Yes, this is the point of view. The image, they construct the image like that. The only policy is to demonize and isolate Pakistan, demonize and isolate Muslims. So they keep telling their people and keep telling the international audiences. International audience, thanks God, not listening them right now at the moment. Before 5 years back, they were listening too much about the Indian. But right now, quite change. I analyze this. But Indians, they still believe that they are the most dark people in the world are the Muslims especially Pakistan. They are funded. You know, example of the famous singer who killed by a gang. So they framed a story with Pakistan that Pakistan was involved in their killing, and there was no involvement in any way. But the media was keep telling their people that all the guns were purchased from Pakistan and was supplied from Pakistan.
Are you talking about Musewala?
Musewala, yes. They were framed. So he was a loved ones in the Punjab, and the Punjabi people love Pakistani. This is true. I also analyze because I studied in Australia and London, so I have a lot of friends there. So I understand that their understanding about Pakistan is quite different. But they would keep telling, no, the Musewala is a loved ones in Indian Punjab especially, and he was telling them no, he was killed behind, the hand was behind by the Pakistanis. So this thing happened.
Unfortunately, this is what the Indians also buy.
Yes, that's
majority true. And well, this
hate
is the way it is. Yeah, whether we like it or we don't. I mean,
yes.
you know, and on top, Maisab, we do not have a counter policy also to counter that media. I mean, you switch on any news channel of India. Most of them are in English also. There are a lot of them in the regional languages. But the language which we understand
yes.
is either Hindi or English.
Yes.
And interestingly, in every primetime talk show, they are maligning Pakistan.
Yes.
In one way or the other. I mean, whether there's a link or no link, or even there is no concern. Like Musewala incident you just mentioned. I
they
mean,
framed it.
It doesn't make any sense, but that's how it is. But let me also bring in Dr. Asma Khawaja Saiba. Dr. Saiba, your take on this point, ma'am, because the question is almost the same, that what Modi is gaining at the end of the day? Is it the larger concept of Hindutva, or is it about the Akhand Bharat, that, you know, one day the Muslims will be eliminated, or they'll be thrown out of that particular area of India, and it is going to be an absolute Hindu majority country, ma'am? Your take.
What Modi is gaining, that is a majoritarian, polarized India where all others but Hindus are excluded from the governance setup and the system. So your question, today I've seen a picture or a small video on Twitter that 11 men who raped Ms. Balkis Begum in Gujarat in 2002. They were released from the jail, and the Hindu RSS advocates, they were treating them with sweets and touching their feet as a Hindu ritual, and appreciating them as if they have done something really great. And this shows and reflects that where Modi is taking India and where India is heading to. When we say that India has progressed a lot, we need to redefine the definition of progress, because yes, India is a strong economy. Yes, India is a good IT market. But when it comes to the social structure and society, Modi is turning it apart. I fully agree with Dr. Tughral that no Indian government was at all pro-Muslim. They all were anti-Muslims. But Modi's policies only highlighted it because it is the raw form without the cosmetics the other governments used to overshadow their anti-Muslim policies. And that anti-Muslim attitude has been reflected in such a committee report in India by the Indian officials released, that where Muslims are the most deprived community which lives in the ghettos, which they are the poorest among all communities living in India. But at the same time, what is happening during the current BJP regime, that is unprecedented, because no other government was so much vocal or visible to commit all these crimes against Muslims. And frankly, what is happening against Muslims in India or Dalits in India, as you yourself quoted, what they have done with what a teacher has done with a 9-year-old poor boy who didn't know that this pot is exclusively for the people or teacher of upper class. So he was killed for this crime. So these crimes should be considered against the crimes
This caste
against
system still
humanity.
prevails, ma'am. Dalits are the
Yeah. So
untouchables, whether we
this
like
is
it or we
this
don't. This is a reality in India.
Yeah, and this is where Modi is leading India to, or maybe India has already been reached there, and their process of decline,
But ma'am, the
especially
question is,
socio-political, has
what
been
has he
started.
gained? I mean, does he have a proper agenda that India should be
Definitely,
a country which should have
Modi
no
has,
other religion other
Faisal,
than Hindus?
Modi
And,
has gained,
you know, we have also
Modi has
witnessed
gained
forced conversions, ma'am.
Faisal, Modi has gained the second term in the government. He is eyeing on the third term. He right now, if we see the policies of BJP, they only think in terms of the domestic political vote bank. And when we see the idea of Indian strategic culture, that has the idea of nationalism, which is territorial in nature. So, what Modi is thinking that I believe that that is not beyond like for the international audience, they whatever they are doing, that is to appease their Hindu radical vote bank, and the discourse of Hindutva, the BJP themselves itself has developed, fanned, and that has become the popular discourse in India. This majoritarianism is what the Indian strategic culture has taught them, because it is, we all know that it is about us versus them. It is about the caste system. It is about excluding others but the Brahmins, and it is the Brahmanism. So this is what Modi has unleashed in India, which other political parties were trying to hide from the international community. And when it comes to Hindi or Indian media or Hollywood media, all their depictions of Muslim only represent one thing: their Islamophobia, their myopic worldview or view of Muslims, their backwardness, and their inability to see beyond the horse blinds they have inflicted upon themselves. So yes, but recently when we see Hollywood movies, and if we ask that what India is or how India is being reflected, I've seen one prime takeaway, that India is extremely poor. Hollywood never shows or never presents, or mostly don't present India as a rich, wealthy, developed, modern state. They always
Absolutely.
represent it as a kingdom
They would
which is being
always pick
indulged
up
in
the
so
the
many
bright
social
side of
ills.
India, ma'am. I still remember one of the movies of Tom Cruise, because it's not only the news channels which in fact promote the propaganda. The movies even, whenever you listen about Pakistan, they will always be talking, or even for that matter, North Korea or Iran. They'll always show these countries as bad countries with terrorists
Russia,
roaming
Faisal,
around,
China.
and they are planning something like 9/11 for that matter, but Pakistan has got nothing to do with it, honestly. At the same time, when they'll show Tom Cruise visiting a huge mansion and Ferraris and Porsches parked outside, you'll see actor Anil Kapoor inside. You know what I'm saying? This is
Yeah,
how they develop the global narrative. Now, ma'am, one quick comment. And then I want to put another question to Dr. Yamin. Ma'am, since you're talking about this media, I still remember the Indian media channels. They have got a lot of collaboration going on with the American channels. There are movies being made together. CNN, IBN, if you remember, is another very important channel where the primetime program is conducted by Mani Shankar Iyer's brother's son, his nephew, Aditya. Now what I'm saying is, ma'am, that whenever they talk and the kind of guests they'll invite, obviously they'll have a proper narrative. It is going to be a program with a proper concentration on a certain agenda. And unfortunately, that lie is bought by the majority, ma'am. And that is something of prime concern. Obviously, this is how the perception is created. But Dr. Saab, coming to you now, one important factor. Yes, India is progressing. You're right, sir, when you look at the data, and there are issues, there are positive sides, there are negatives as well, and that's how it is. But sir, eliminating the Muslims and the pace at which the Modi government is working, for example, taking away the status of the Rohingya Muslims, people who have been living in the area of Assam for that matter. I'm talking about the extreme east or the Chicken Neck and the eastern side. Most of these people, sir, whether you talk about Assam or Bihar or Bengal, I mean, because Bangladesh is on the other side, so there is a lot of Muslim families living out there. Sir, their status has been snatched. I mean, they do not even know where to go, what to do. So at the end of the day, either few will be killed, few will be living in those areas, you know, without any facility, without any recognition actually. And that's when you realize that, you know, how important independence is. Do you really believe, because when we talk about Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah's vision, so when he said, well, a separate homeland for the Muslims so that they can practice. So this problem hasn't actually started recently. It was there, is there, and will remain there as well. Now, sir, those Muslims who decided to remain in India, now they regret. When the partition took place, sir, it is generally believed that 2 million people, just imagine 2 million people in 1947, and during that particular time, they were killed. Majority of them were Muslims. Now, sir, this particular rivalry, is it because of the 900 or 1,000 year rule of the Muslims in that particular part, which they cannot forget? Is it that sentiment which is really, you know, motivating them to take revenge, or is there any other philosophy?
You're absolutely right, Faisal Saab. It is basically of the Muslim invasions of India and their prolonged rule in the subcontinent that the Indians still cannot digest. And the Hindus have been anti-Pakistan for a very long time now. During the benign rule of the Mughals, maybe they were being dealt very magnanimously or generously by their rulers. They were also intermarrying with them. We know that Akbar married Jodha Bhai and his brother Man Singh was his favorite general.
And they were never converted also.
They were never converted, but the hate was so intense that as soon as Muslim rule weakened, the Hindus were not in a mood to spare the Muslims. And we talk about Modi. I'll go again back to the original argument. They have been against Pakistan, against Muslims for a very long time. We know about the Shudi and Sangathan movements. We know about the conversions.
Is it about all the Muslims or the Muslims in the subcontinent, sir? Because when he goes to Bahrain, when he goes to Saudi Arabia or UAE, they end up giving him the highest civil award, sir. What for?
It's all the big market that the Indians have. No, it is basically the Indian Muslims and Pakistani Muslims. The Muslims who were converted or who were progeny of the invaders. That is what the Indians cannot stomach. So not the Indians, the Hindu extremists cannot suffer, they cannot live with this. But the fact is, Faisal Saab, that Muslims cannot be eliminated from India. They're far too large a majority.
More than the population of Pakistan?
That's what the Indians say. They claim, perhaps they're right. The Muslim growth of reproduction or production is the highest in the area, so they cannot be eliminated. It's not possible. It's the same like in Palestine. You cannot just completely eliminate a race. It is highly unlikely. It is impossible. And given the fact that perhaps Muslim women are more fertile than the other women, so their birth rate is much higher. So they have always been against Muslims. They never wanted. Pakistan would have never come into being if they had been slightly accommodative, slightly flexible. Muhammad Ali Jinnah, Quaid-e-Azam, we know what was the ambassador of Hindu-Muslim unity. That was the title given to him by Sarojini Naidu. And a person like him, who dressed like an Englishman, was forced to convert his physical appearance to appear like
the wife of Lord Mountbatten once told Jinnah that you are more British than a British.
He was.
What a well-dressed man.
He was.
What a classy person he was.
Yes, and he was not, please forgive me for saying, he was not a practicing Muslim like the one we want us to be. He was a very open man. He was a very liberal man. And he said on his 11th of August address that You're free to go to your temples, free to go to your mosques. That has got nothing with the business of state. And this is, these are the words of the creator of Pakistan, who created Pakistan on the two-nation theory. So what I'm trying to say is that anti-Muslim sentiment in India has been there for maybe a century, 200 years, 300 years. It has been there. It spikes, it goes up and it comes down. Don't forget Indira Gandhi, who said after she had captured East Pakistan that I have thrown the two-nation theory into the Bay of Bengal. So what worse accolade you can get from an Indian
leader? It was our own fault.
It was absolutely. It's still our own fault.
I will not blame anybody else. I mean, if you are doing it to yourself, I mean, if somebody else supports the other party, there you go.
It's a self-inflicted
It was bound to
wound.
happen.
But if we don't get strong economically, they will continue to mistreat the Muslims in India. We have no authority, we have no influence in the world to stop them from perpetrating the barbarities on their non-Hindu minorities, including Muslims, which is a very, very large minority, and even Sikhs and Christians and Buddhists. And as you mentioned, people in the East who have been coming from Bangladesh, they don't spare anybody.
So interestingly, if you go abroad and you end up meeting people from and especially in the areas like Sri Lanka, or you visit Maldives for that matter, so a lot of people from the extreme south, they go there. And I happened to meet one of the families there, and they thought that I was also an Indian, but from the northern side. So I didn't tell him that I was from Pakistan. So after about 3-4 minutes, I had to tell him. What I'm saying is that those people think that all the decisions are being taken in UP and the areas around Delhi, for that matter. And there's a lot of division, because India is a big country, and it's not a country. It's like a consortium kind of a state with so many provinces put together, and that's how they function. Because if you look at their language, their food, their culture, their norms, for that matter, the kind of activities they do, they're so different from each other.
But let me get back to the same thing. You see, partition was one of, as you mentioned very correctly, it was a horror which visited the subcontinent, and people like Gandhi, who was the icon of non-violence, could do nothing to prevent it. And look at these rascals, they celebrated 14th of August as the horrors of Partition Day, saying thereby that it was the creation of the Muslims. But
and who ended up killing him?
Yeah, God say RSS. But the point is, Faisal Saab, the Hindus or the fascist Hindus or the ultra-rightist Hindus are against you. They will always be against you, but you can do nothing about them unless you make your own country very, very strong and powerful.
Exactly. One has to put their own house in order.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
True.
Yes, you wanted to add something.
I want to add two things. In 2012, I interviewed V.T. Shankar. V.T. Shankar was Dalit's leader at that time, and he told me, during interview, he told me that, do you know what is the biggest problem in India? India's establishment and Indian media is governed and managed by the Brahmanism. It's not about Hinduism, it's about the Brahmanism. We say Hindu Plight. He said no, the first thing is the Brahmanism. They all manage them. The rest of the people are following them. Dalits, the Dalits were not Hindus. They were accepted Hindu in 200 years back when they need votes from them. So this is history. So understanding the Hindutva, we have to understand first the Sanatan Dharma. So what is Sanatan Dharma? How they behave, they did. So the V.T. Shankar was they really explained me that what's being happened in India, and he too told me that Kurkure, that the inspector Kurkure he was investigating the 2008 Mumbai attacks, and he was killed by someone. He told me that he was killed by the Brahmanism, the movement of Brahmanism. There are some people, and he was killed there, and the rest of people arrested, but the media put down the story, and nothing come up in the media.
And when you look at the documentaries they have made about that incident and the movies,
all in Pakistan.
Total anti-Pakistan.
Pakistan Muslims, Muslim terrorists. Their framing is you say being a media, what we do, we analyze the frames. The frame is Muslims, evils, bad people, monsters, and terrorists. And same frame with Pakistan. The Pakistan frame is larger for them because hate is the most selling thing in media, unfortunately.
And especially in India.
And India.
Anti-Pakistan sentiment would make them win the election.
win the election. They fight the election on the basis of that. You know, in last election, the main agenda was that after winning the election, Modi will attack on Pakistan, and Pakistan will finish, and so vote for the Modi. That was the kind of being happened. Still, there is being happen in India. So, thanks, and we are quite immature from that. If we see Pakistani media, we're not like this. If you turn in a Pakistani channel, you will not find anything like these things. But when you turn on the Indian channel, you will find a lot of things in Pakistan.
And recently, I mean, this incident of blasphemy when the BJP leaders spoke Nauzubillah against the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And similarly, if you remember, I'll also quote one thing here, sir. One of the female leaders of BJP, in fact, provoked the extremist Hindus to rape the Muslim women, as it's not a sin, it's something to be proud of.
Yeah.
Imagine if that is what, and you know, another one comes up and says that, you know, instead of buying an expensive mobile phone, you should get an automatic rifle to kill the Muslims. And I think if we end up having 100 people, just 100, we can do this. And if we end up having 100,000 of those extremist Hindus with the weapons, we can eliminate the entire Muslim population. I mean, if this is what has been said, unfortunately, this is nobody took notice of it.
No one will care about that. The question is, no one care about that. Their government, their institutions, their organization, they didn't care about that. So because the hate is selling, anti-Muslim hate is now another thing is that nowadays on social media you will find in the anti-Muslim songs, and they're getting the.
So they are smart enough, because most of these Indians are at the top-notch high-tech companies, whether you talk about Google or you talk about any other company. This is the name of the game. I still remember whenever the Pakistani Prime Minister, I'm talking about Mr. Nawaz Sharif, during his time, he would go to attend the UN session, you know, the annual session that they have around September, October.
Yes,
and interestingly, I saw Modi, rather than going to, I mean, he was visiting America, but instead of being a part of the, of that delegation which would be present in the UN, he would prefer to go to California and the Silicon Valley. And I still remember the lady who passed away was the foreign external affairs minister, short height,
I remember.
Forgetting her name. That lady would give the speech.
Sushmita Swaraj.
Exactly, Swaraj.
Sushma Swaraj.
Now, that is what it is all about. So he was meeting Zuckerberg and rest of the people, and now this is what the name of the game is. Now bringing you, ma'am, into this very important discussion, Asma, Shakir, Khawaja Sahiba. These two institutions in India, one was military and the second was judiciary. Just like the Election Commission of India, we always give examples of that institution that look at the kind of powers they have, and they can do this, and they have already done that in the past, and this is how we should also work. I'm talking about the military, which seemed to be pretty neutral maybe a decade ago or something. So was the case with the institution which is the military. Now both have been politicized to an extent that, you know, obviously when you can read the writing on the wall, it's no more gray, it's like black and white. Still, interestingly, the Indian judiciary, their verdicts, I mean, they are totally anti-Muslim. I mean, you talk about the Babri Mosque incident. I mean, I can give you a long list. Then these Mujahideens, who were the actual freedom fighters, they were shown to the world as terrorists, and they were given very severe punishments. Most of these leadership of Jammu and Kashmir, whether you talk about Yasin Malik or anybody else, they are in Tihar jail. I mean, we all know what's going on out there. Then on top, their military, which I earlier mentioned, was never politicized. Now they have also become so, I would say, politicized that they end up giving statements against the leadership of Pakistan and Pakistan. So, ma'am, when the institutions get corrupt to that level that they have to follow the footsteps or the line given by the government, ma'am, then what is that supposed to mean? How should we take it?
See, that is one of the reasons that India has become electoral autocracy as per the international institutions. And then this is a myth that Indian military was not politicized 10 years back, because it is the same military which which always during the decision making processes in India, they always put their opinion or their assumption or their viewpoint at first, like Rajiv Gandhi and Benazir Bhutto discussed and thought to make Siachen as a no man's land, but Indian army refused to follow the instructions or orders of Rajiv Gandhi, and they said we cannot vacate it. So anyways, it's a long debate, but yes, definitely Modi has made the politicization of Indian institutions completely visible and tangible. Prior to that, it was not that visible, or it was not that been noticed, or it was not that massive. But thanks to Modi, and I think the credit goes to Modi that he has substantiated the idea of Pakistan. He substantiates it every day, that the idea of Pakistan was pertinent, it was on point, the two-nation theory is valid, and and Hindus and Muslims cannot live together. Unfortunately, this is how Modi is behaving. And politicization, politicization of any military is not good. It is not appreciable phenomena. So what Modi is doing, Modi is using all institutions to support, generate, accelerate the popular discourse of hatred against all minorities living in India. This is a myth that Hinduism is a religion of peace and they never had conflicts with other religions during the history. The massive or most prominent genocides of Jains, Sikhs, and other local religions, Christians, Muslims, they were conducted by Hindu fanatics. Hindu fanatics were involved in mass killings of, historically, I'm talking about like 5, 6, 7, 800 years back. They were involved in massive killings of Jains, Sikhs, Muslims, Christians. So no one is welcomed. But somehow, with the help of these perception building tools, they were successful in selling yoga and Ayurveda as their identity to the international community. And that is how they created this false bubble of being secular or being peaceful that is being pricked by, thanks to Mr. Modi. So Indian institutions, definitely they are only a tool in the hand of their political government. The independent identity of either Indian military or Indian judiciary is being questioned. We all know the military officer of India who was involved in the setting a train on fire and killing of hundreds of Muslims sitting in that train, Samjhota Express, he was released by Indian judiciary. He was not convicted for this massive
if I'm not wrong,
crime.
what was his name?
Yeah, I'm just, his name slipped out of my mind. But this is what Indian judiciary is doing. The rapists who committed gang rape, they were released. We all know that there are various BJP's member of parliaments who are convicted in hate crimes against Muslims, like killing, torturing, and they are now member of Indian parliament. So this is what India is becoming, or India was maybe India always was an intolerant society. If it would be, Hindus would be a tolerant community, then Pakistan would never ever came into being. Muslims would never be able to think that in order to live with dignity and integrity, they need a separate homeland. And as Dr. Tughral mentioned about partition. Partition of what? Partition of only Muslim majority states, Bengal and Punjab. What else was partitioned in India in 1947? Only Sir Redcliffe, only to satisfy Mr. Mountbatten, only to satisfy the Hindu Congress standing behind him, and they partitioned those two states which were actually the Muslim majority states, and as per the
unfortunately
rules
in India they are also changing the history and perhaps
Yes.
teaching the wrong history and long lessons to their future generations. Now, sir, since I was told that we are running out of time, but quick comments on a couple of points. Lynching. This word normally, the moment you think about this word lynching, India comes in your mind, and a Muslim is, you know, imagine being tortured by X number of extremist Hindus. So many times they've killed. Now, sir, this lynching issue doesn't make headlines in India anymore. It has become a very regular feature, as if two youngsters end up having a quarrel in a school or college or university. So, don't you think, sir, this now they have to go a step higher and another step and another step? Remember that girl who was wearing a burqa, and not a burqa, but a hijab, and then these Hindu boys, you know, just one girl, and she was all over the social media because she said, well, I'm a Muslim and I'm wearing a veil, and what's wrong with that? And they were like maybe 100 or maybe more than that. So, sir, these things are pretty normal now, aren't they?
They are. This is the new norm. But
The new norm, yeah.
I'll again say, look, you said that the Indian military has become very anti-Pakistan. Indian military was
No, not anti-Pakistan. So what I'm saying that they have been politicized to an extent that they exactly follow what their government is saying, and they are issuing political statements.
They're supposed to do that. The military head is supposed to echo his political master's words, so that they're doing it. See, this is ingrained in their DNA that Pakistan is their enemy. I've been a soldier all my life. It is ingrained in our mind also that India is our enemy. So nothing new there. We both have our mottos. We think we should take revenge for what they did with us in East Pakistan, and we should fight for Kashmir. That is our cause. We must do it. Similarly, they've been told that look, the people across the international border or line of control are really bad people, as Dr. Saab here was saying. So there are things which are happening in India which are the new normal. It has always been. My father used to tell me that they would play pranks by touching the Hindu pani. There used to be Hindu pani and Muslim pani. And they
Like
would,
Hindu mithai and Muslim mithai.
Mithai, yeah. And we used to play pranks with the mithai stuff also, the sweet meat also.
Nihaz and prasad.
Yeah, so they would touch it as children, run away, and they would throw it away. So these things are ingrained. You see, you cannot change that. But one thing I can tell you, Muslims in India cannot be eliminated. And like the girl, I'm forgetting her name, who stood up for her rights to wear a veil, nothing happened to her because she stood up. She was not bullied. She could not be harassed, and she said, "This is my right to wear veil." So similarly, I don't think the Muslims will ever be eliminated totally, or their spirit will be subdued. They will keep fighting. The only thing that Pakistan can do is be a strong country itself. So
that you can support somebody, you know. Weaker countries can't support anybody.
At the moment, we are not in a position to support anybody, anybody in the world, any Muslim nation in the world. That's unfortunately, that is our plight.
Well, talking about Rwanda, another country, since I studied a few books, watched a few movies also, a few documentaries, Hutus and Tutsis, is the situation somewhat like the same? The killer had no clue why he was killing, and the person who was being killed, or the hands and the arms and the feet of the children were chopped off, not knowing why.
I can give you in a short word. Media change the narrative that Muslims are not deprived people. They are the real monsters. They change the narrative, and they keep telling the people, that they are the real monster. They are the evil societies. So that's saying, if you media keep telling you, so what you can do. And one more thing. Last year, one of the state of the led by BJP, I think Assam, northern Assam, they put a law. They passed a law that you have to abolish the madrasas of Islam. So the thing is that they're changing your narrative from down. So this is very alarming for the Indian Muslims.
Well, let's see what happens, but this is unfortunately is the reality.
Yes, it's the reality.
But Dr. Majid, thank you very much, sir, for your presence in the program. Dr. Tughral, it's always good to have you, sir,
thank you very much.
in the show. And thank you very much, Dr. Asma Khawaja Sahiba. It was a pleasure talking to you and listening to you, and for your input as far as our program is concerned. And that's all we have for this hour. I'll see you inshallah tomorrow at 8:05 p.m. Till then, you take good care of yourself. Khuda Hafiz.